Music to the noise, yeah, the mess we make. Machine Pun Kelly get caught in the fray. Facts and logic with a twist of chest. Strip it down to truth, yeah, forget the rest. Humor pulls the lies right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity when they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled lies. Machine Pun Kelly with the center clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts glow.
Hey there, and welcome to the Pun Show. Thanks for joining. If you're on X or Twitter and you want to join me on YouTube, that would be swell. I get hours. I get credit for the minutes you watch on YouTube, not on Twitter. So, it just works out better for me that way. But if it works better for you to stay on Twitter, then remain on Twitter. It's not a big deal. So anyway, let's talk Cory Booker. And I am a bit jaded when it comes to politics. And this is the type of thing I would normally look at as a stunt. But even if it was a stunt, it was a magnificent stunt, well executed. I would even say perfectly executed. And it was inspiring as all get out. It is the moment that the Democrats needed desperately. And I have nothing but good words to say about Cory Booker and his, literally historic speech last night. And I think it was historic both in the fact that it was the longest speech in the history of the U.S. Senate, but I think it was also one of the best and most significant speeches in the history of the U.S. Senate. He was not just rambling up there. He wasn't up there reading Dr. Seuss like a certain weasel-bearded freighter I know of, who happens to be one of my U.S. senators. But it was poignant. It was articulate. It was intelligent. It was insightful. It was what's the word I'm looking for? Logical. It was on so many fronts. It was just well done. And I know that this was a plan and that he had like 1,200 pages prepared for it, but that's part of what makes it perfect. It wasn't just something he winged. It was something he planned, and something he planned well. So like Joe says here, he read many letters from his constituents, and he said a lot of things that were of real substance. And so today what I want to do is I put together a little top 10 list of videos of clips of him speaking, and I just want to show those clips and then just share a little bit about what my thoughts are on them. And I've ranked them from 10 to 1, but this was kind of I didn't go through a big thorough process. This is just my gut reaction after hearing them. These are my top 10 lists of things that Cory Booker said yesterday. And I included in this some about like the significance of each thing, but also, like the significance of the moments. So let's start with this one.
This is a time for us to do something bigger than that. Do you think Martin Luther King in Birmingham hated Bull Connor or said, I'm going to defeat this guy by bringing bigger dogs and bigger fire hoses? No. But he did say, we're going to be so creative, we're going to inspire the moral imagination of the nation, we're going to call to the conscience of the country, we're going to excite them about who we could be When he went to the March on Washington, he didn't stand there and complain about the demagogues. Listen to his speech. He didn't stand there and demean and degrade the governor of Alabama. He didn't stand there and talk down to Bull Connor. No, he stood before the American people and said, it's not what you're against, it's what you're for. I have a dream. And now it's our generation. We have to redeem the dream. We have to excite people again. He, in the highest office of our land, wants to divide us against ourselves, wants to make us afraid, wants to make us fear so much that we're willing to violate people's fundamental rights. We're willing to go after the speech on college campuses. We're willing to go after law firms, go after the freedom of the press. Don't let him do that. Don't become like him. Be an American that says, I look to the future and I'm excited. Yes, things are tough right now. They're hard, they're scary, they're hurting, but we can overcome this. Our American history, if it's nothing else, American history, if it's nothing else, it is a perpetual testimony to the achievement of impossible things against impossible odds. We are a nation that is great not because of the people that are trying to whitewash our history, to remove great people, Native Americans, black people, and women from our military websites. I don't want a Disneyfication of our history. I don't want to whitewash history. I don't want to homogenize history. Tell me the wretched truth about America, because that speaks to our greatness.
So that one, there were a couple of really inspiring moments for me. One was America. What did he say? It's the achievement. America's greatness is defined by the achievement against impossible odds, or something like that. And then the Disneyfication of America, that we're not for the Disneyfication of America. And I just, like, that really hit home. I think that there's a lot of like anti-Trump, and I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with being anti-Trump, right? He literally is, like Cory said, he's trying to drive a wedge in between Americans. And so it's easy to respond to that part of it and what we're against rather than what we're for. And what we are for is we're for democracy. We're for the freedom of speech. We're for not classifying some citizens above other citizens. We're for trans people being able to exist as they are and not as some other people think they should be. So I was really inspired by that, to think about things in a, like, not the current situation in a positive light, but our future situation in a positive light. And I had not considered that, Joe. Was that a shout out to DeSantis' legal assault on Disney? I think it could be. Okay, and then this guy Wubba Dub, I don't know what his issue is. He's trying to start an argument and say that I didn't respond, but anyway, I'm just putting his comment up here to show that I am not ignoring him. He wants to know, it's about another discussion. Anyway, Wubba Dub, just go to the other discussion and, like, respond there in the comment section. I know that what you're saying, but if you could do that, that would, rather than interrupt a live broadcast. Okay. So, all right. So let's go to the next video. This is number 9. And he's talking to Tammy Duckworth, among others.
Thank you, Senator. Every time I see you, I have such reverence and gratitude that I get to serve alongside of you. I didn't serve in the military alongside of you like those courageous soldiers, like those people who carried you at risk to themselves, people who saved your life, the people that helped you in rehab, the people that empowered you to get back on your feet and run for one of the highest offices in the land, and then you serve here with distinction because you don't forget who helped you get here.
Just take care of my buddies.
Exactly. And my dad, who's in heaven, with a lot of the other good folks from American history, I don't know what he'd think of his son, but I know he'd be proud of you. All right, let's talk about the economy.
So if you don't know who Tammy Duckworth is, which not everybody knows who every single senator and representative is, and I am among those people. I frequently have to look up names even of the senators. But Tammy Duckworth, when I used to live in Chicago, and I was really excited to vote for her. And she lost her. Did she lose the? She's a combat veteran of the Iraq War. She served as a U.S. Army helicopter pilot. In 2004, when her Black Hawk helicopter was hit by a rocket-propelled grenade fired by Iraqi insurgents, she lost both legs and some mobility in her right arm. She was the first female W amputee of the war. And so then she came back from the war and she ran for the U.S. Senate and she won. As a resident of Chicago, then I was very, very happy to vote for her. And so this shout out from Cory Booker to her and to other veterans that have. So as a veteran that had been injured, and just to see the respect that Cory Booker is giving to her in this moment, to me was inspiring. And I think it's maybe something that we should do more of, is look at people for all of who they are rather than merely reducing them to what they believe politically. But anyway, that's another story. All right, so now let's go to number 8.
To call to the conscience of this nation, to say, I will not stand for another American to lose their health care for a billionaire. I will not stand for another veteran who's dedicated to stopping the suicide of other veterans to lose their job. I won't stand for the air quality in my community to be made worse because they're letting polluters pollute more. I won't stand for the collective assaults on the Constitution by a man who even the highest judge in our land, a Republican-appointed judge, said, stop threatening and bullying other branches of government. When is it going to be enough? My voice is inadequate. My efforts today are inadequate to stop what they're trying to do. But we, the people, are powerful. We are strong. We have changed history. We have bent the arc of the moral universe. And now is that moral moment again. It's the moral moment again. God bless America. We need you now. God bless America. If you love her, if you love your neighbor, if you love this country, show your love. Stop them from doing what they're trying to do. For almost 20 hours, we have laid out what they're trying to do. 20 hours. I want to stand more, and I will, but I'm begging people, don't let this be another normal day in America. Please, God, don't let them take Medicaid away from 10, 20, 30, or 40 million Americans who desperately need it. Don't let them do it.
So I included that one because it contains something that I think a lot of people have been calling for, and feel free to, like if you feel the same way, to weigh in the comments. But it's about time somebody really showed they were pissed off, that's in the leadership. And this is the first time I've seen somebody as viscerally angry about what the Republicans are doing as I am. And we need to see that. I mean, we can't expect a minority party that has a minority in both houses and the White House and the Supreme Court to be able to, score win after win. but I would like to see them score fight after fight. And this is not something I've seen from Chuck Schumer, but it is something I saw from Cory Booker yesterday. There was real fight in that. And this, his articulation of this is a moral moment really struck home with me. This is not just some random political fight in the middle, you know, of something random. This is significant. This is like one of, at least I'm 57 years old, and I can say, politically speaking, these moments are the most significant in my lifetime. And you know, other people might disagree, but I cannot think of a greater moment in American history than we are in right now in terms of preserving our democracy, preserving this precious experiment that the founding fathers gave us, that we have preserved now for 250 years, for almost 250 years. This is, we need to do something. We need to fight. We need to preserve our democracy and not just continually capitulate to overlords like Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And I think he encapsulated that much more eloquently than I could ever do. So that's why I was inspired. Okay, so let's go to the next one.
And now it's our generation. We have to redeem the dream. We have to excite people again. He, in the highest office of our land, wants to divide us against ourselves, wants to make us afraid, wants to make us fear so much that we're willing to violate people's fundamental rights. We're willing to go after the speech on college campuses. We're willing to go after law firms, go after the freedom of the press. Don't let him do that. Don't become like him. Be an American that says, I look to the future and I'm excited. Yes, things are tough right now. They're hard, they're scary, they're hurting, but we can overcome this. Our American history, if it's nothing else, American history, if it's nothing else.
Once I think I showed the same one twice. Let me try this again.
That is being too complicit to an executive that is overstepping his authority and violating the Constitution and hurting people who rely on health care and Social Security. I'm reading these stories, sir, because the voices of the Americans that don't have the privilege that the 100 of us don't get to stand here, but I believe the power of the people is greater than the people in power. That's the ideals of our democracy and our Constitution.
The power of the people is greater than the people in power. I love that utterance. That is so perfectly stated. And it's something we have to remember. While we're sitting here complaining and saying things like, you know, well, somebody better do something. Why isn't anyone doing anything? I think we need to, like, remember that old expression about, you know, if there's a finger pointing at you, somebody else, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. And I think that's a good thing to keep in mind for this. Where are we? Stop asking where everybody else is. Stop asking where your senators are or where your representatives are. Ask where you are. And not everybody is equipped to go out and lead some kind of political charge. But I would ask this, and I ask this to myself a lot, and when I don't always answer in the affirmative, and when I do, I resolve to take action. And for me, this is something I keep trying to do. I don't know if I'm succeeding or not, but I am trying. It's why I'm doing this podcast, is what can I do that I am not doing? And so I just feel like if we all step up and do all we can do the power of the people is greater than the people in power, even if that person in power is Donald Trump. We can't concede to him. We can't relent. We can't give up. We have to double down. We have to dig in. We have to fight harder. We have to do everything we can do instead of talking about what they should do. So just, I mean, personally, independently, ask yourself, what can you do that you aren't already doing? Even if it's writing a letter or making a phone call or tweeting a tweet or whatever. One little grain of sand at a time ends up weighing tons. So like, let's all resolve. I will do one thing, like, just if you make this basic resolution to yourself, I think we can change the world. If we each resolve every week, just once a week, we do one thing that we would not normally do, then we can be doing so much more, so much more. So anyway, I was inspired by that part, that it's not, when he says we the people, he doesn't mean him as a senator. He means him as an individual person. And so if he can stand up there for 25 hours and speak truth, we can spend 10, 15 minutes a week dedicating ourselves to the same truth. Let's go to the next one.
I will tell you, this Constitution has saved my life. It made my life, because people marched to make real on the promise of our democracy. People bled to make real on this democracy. When some people told us that this Constitution didn't apply for us, this body, Republicans in America stood up and said, no, President Johnson, we're going to do amendments. We saw the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment would guarantee my ancestors finally full citizenship in the United States of America and the protections of the Constitution. I am here in this body because of past generations that fought to uphold the Constitution, not because the Constitution was real to them, but because they brought reality and hope and love and promise to the Constitution. They were Americans that said, like Langston Hughes, America never was America to me, but I swear this oath, America will be. They loved this country so much, even when it didn't love them back. I am here because of that. I'm the fourth black person popularly elected to this body because of generations that believed so much in this document that they were going to make it real. It lived in them.
So I think this kind of goes back a little bit to the power of the people versus the people in power. And he's talking about how the Constitution, the reality of the Constitution, is in what we bestow upon it. It is when we believe in the ideals of the Constitution, if we believe that all people are created equal, if we believe that people really do have rights to say things that we disagree with or believe things that we don't believe in, if we really believe in the ideals put forth in the Constitution, we won't only fight for what we believe, but for what others believe also. That's the we the people that I agree with, that I believe in. I believe in MAGA's rights to articulate what they think and to speak what they want to speak. But they don't believe in mine. And that is not a right. It is not a right to suppress what I have to say. That is where you start getting into the paradox, the intolerance paradox, to where or I think it's called the tolerance paradox, to where if you tolerate everything, then eventually nothing will be tolerated except for, the intolerant ones, because they will suppress all intolerance through their intolerance. So it's kind of a paradox. Like if you say that, you know, these people don't have a right to disagree with you, and those people don't have a right to disagree with you. If you want to support that right to say that right, then eventually that right will end up replacing all other rights. And so we'll end up in a society where the only ones that can say what they believe in are those whom disagree with everyone else. Anyway, comes from World War II. I think the guy might have known what he was talking about. Sorry for the pixelating. It's my green screen situation. But anyway, I think that hang on a second. Lost my thought. Let me check my notes. What the Constitution is to us depends on what we put into the Constitution, if that makes sense. Then we can reach the achievement of the impossible. Okay, so now this is probably my favorite moment.
Behold, Lord, here I am. And so I confess that I have been imperfect. I confess that I've been inadequate to the moment. I confess that the Democratic Party has made terrible mistakes that have given lane to this demagogue. I confess we all must look in the mirror and say we will do better. And it's not just defining ourselves what we're against. We, the next generation, as the baby boomers are leaving the stage, the last baby boomer president, we have to say that we're going to redeem the dream. We're going to dream America anew. We're going to start talking about bold things that don't divide people, that unite people. Bold things that excite the moral imagination of a country to do better, to go higher, that call us together. This is the time where new leaders in our country must emerge. I'm not talking about senators. I'm talking about citizens.
Let's watch part of that again.
We're going to start talking about bold things that don't divide people, that unite people. Bold things that excite the moral imagination of a country to do better, to go higher, that call us together. This is the time where new leaders in our country must emerge. I'm not talking about senators. I'm talking about citizens.
Are you a new leader? I think we need new blood, and people that were kind of born in the, like born, I don't mean physically born. I mean politically born. And I don't mean born as in birthed. I mean born as in carried by, like the wind, like a sail being borne by a wind. Are you born in this age? Have you been motivated by and inspired by and committed to by this particular last decade? Has your politics been awakened? Have your ideals been revived? I don't care if you're 70 or if you're 25. If these moments have woken you up, consider yourself as a possibility to run for office. Like if you have the health, and like some people just don't have the health. If you don't have the money, maybe something can work itself out. Think of yourself as a candidate. Think of it, just project yourself as a candidate and consider, could you do more than the person that is sitting in office in the House of Representatives? Or in your state house? What about local office? We need from the ground to the top, not just the president, from the ground to the top. We need Democrats that are real Democrats and not these, like Democrats that work with Republicans. We don't need more Joe Manchins. We need more Joe Blows. We need more ordinary, average Americans that are just tired of being pushed around and manipulated by right-wing nonsense, that are ready to step up and really do something. So ask yourself, are you ready to take the next step? So, okay, Joe says, my Dem House rep voted for the Lincoln Riley Act, which was flawed. Yes, I'm like, don't want to go on a diatribe or a sidetrack here, but the Lincoln Riley Act was just a blatantly racist grab for nonsense. It's already illegal to murder people. It doesn't become legal to murder people if you're an illegal immigrant. All it does is demonize illegal immigrants. There was no point in that, and the Democrats should have stood stronger against it. But that's the kind of thing I mean. We need Democrats. So, Joe, if you're able, I would ask you, have you considered running for office? And I know people that are running for office. They're having trouble getting support from the Democratic Party because they don't live in blue districts, which to me is just conceding all red districts. Screw it. Figure something out. We can find a way. We can find a way to take some of these red seats. And, if we do that, then we start being able to make, we start having more power, more authority. But I really and if you can't run a campaign, if you can't run for office, how about dedicating some time to spend for somebody who has? Look at your local representation and see if you can become a campaign volunteer. Even if it's an hour a week, even if it's just calling people on the phone or knocking on doors, even if it's just the minimal. If you have 500 people doing the minimum in one district, then you have a winning campaign. And so if you can just be one person, that makes a difference. Then make a difference. Be the one person. I think if there's anything that Cory Booker's speech amplifies, it's that do what you can with what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Don't worry about what you can't do. But are you doing what you can do? He had any one of the other senators from the Democratic Party could have done what he did, but he's the one who did it. So, what are you doing? I'm so tired of hearing people talk about what are the Democrats doing? And I always ask, what are you doing? What are you doing? And it's like, until you can say you're doing something, you don't even have to be doing everything you possibly can, but are you doing something other than tweet? What are you doing? Well, that's the difference. Okay, let's go to the next video clip before I start preaching. This is the last. I saved this for next to last. This is the moment where
Let's get back to the ideals that others are threatening. Let's get back to our founding documents, that those imperfect geniuses had some very special words at the end of the Declaration of Independence. It was one of the greatest in all of humanity declarations of interdependence. When our founder said we must mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. We need that now from all Americans. This is a moral moment. It's not left or right, it's right or wrong. Let's get in good trouble. My friend, Madam President, I yield the floor.
So the when he yielded the floor after, what was it, 25 hours and 4 minutes, the longest speech in the history of the Senate. And he calls to mind John Lewis's "Let's get into good trouble." And if you don't know, which I hope you know, but in case you don't, um, John Lewis was nearly beaten to death because he protested the unequal rights that blacks were getting in Alabama in terms of being able to vote. He was nearly beaten to death for a civil disobedient march saying that he has the right to vote. He didn't touch anybody, he didn't hurt anybody, he didn't do any damage to anybody, but damage was done to him. And his motto was always, let's get into good trouble. If you're going to break the law, an unjust law for just reasons, that's good trouble. If you break the law without being violent because the law is wrong, that is good trouble. And I was reading an article about a transgender woman who I think went to college. I want to say it was college. And she went to go use a bathroom that was prohibited from being used by people that were, assigned a different gender at birth. And she wrote a letter in advance saying she was going to do this because she believed in civil disobedience. And she was in the bathroom for a good 20 seconds before the police came in and arrested her for breaking this law that is an unjust law. She did not hurt anybody. She did not damage anybody. Nobody was scarred by having to share a restroom with a transgender woman. But that's civil disobedience. That's good trouble. And I think we need more of that. I think that there might be, there might be consequences. You look at people that are being deported now because they were here on student visas, but they stood with like not murdering innocent Gazans just because they happen to be in Gaza. They get twisted into being like pro Hamas because they're not, or they're twisted into being anti-Jewish because they don't think innocent Hamas people should be killed. This is not the way things are. There's more than two sides to things, and it's not either or. But she got into good trouble, and she got arrested, and she might have to spend 30 days in prison. But she knew all that going into it, and she said in a letter that she was willing to go through that. And that's courage. And I think that we need to consider that it takes real courage to do these things. It took courage for Cory Booker to do what he did. It takes courage for this woman to do what she's doing. It took courage for John Lewis to march when he knew he was going to get beaten. These things take courage, and they do incur harm. Like she will have the transgender woman will have this blemish on her record that could cause future employment concerns. She will have this blemish on her record. She might have to actually spend 30 days in a federal prison where she could be raped because she is transgender. Like all of these things are really valid. And she knew that. She even said that in her letter, that she knew going in this could happen. But she was willing to do it anyway. So are you willing to make sacrifices? Are you willing to do these things? Are you willing to be hurt by what you believe in? Because what you believe in is greater than the hurt you will experience. We need to have this kind of reflections on ourselves, and we need to consider, what are we willing to do, and not what am I willing to do, what am I willing to go forward with. So am I willing to suffer persecution for my beliefs, because I think that transgender people have a right to exist in our society. So anyway, I thought that was a great moment. I thought that was a great way to go out. That was, like the end of his speech. But I think that the moment that it was shouldn't take away from the content of what he said. All right, so one last one. And this one is, this is the moment when he broke the record.
I'm getting close to a record, folks, but there's a room here in the Senate named after Strom Thurmond. To hate him was wrong. And maybe my ego got too caught up that if I stood here, maybe, just maybe I could break this record of the man who tried to stop the rights upon which I stand. I'm not here, though, because of his speech. I'm here despite his speech. I'm here because as powerful as he was, the people were more powerful. But I remind you, all those people who believe like me that we've got to redeem the dream, turn again to John Lewis, because you all know the story, my colleagues, of when the man that beat him savagely, drew blood, cracked bones. Decades later, he was a congressman. That man brought his grandson with him to ask for forgiveness from John Lewis. I heard about this story when I was in the car in Georgia with him. What did you do, John? This man that so viciously beat you, wounded you, bruised you, battered you. What did you do when he came to ask you for forgiveness? What did you do? And a good Christian man of faith, simply said, every one of us needs mercy. Every one of us needs redemption. I forgave him. I hugged him. We wept. And I looked at the boy. This nation needs you too.
So right there, they're handing him the paper. That's Chuck Schumer's note, letting him know that he had just broken the record. And it says a lot about what he is discussing and how he is discussing it. As he breaks the record, set ironically by Strom Thurmond, who, in case you didn't know, was he set the record filibustering against desegregation. So he was on the side of segregation. And here you have Cory Booker being the one who breaks his record, a black man, the fourth black person elected to the Senate. I think the second since desegregation. I think Carol Moseley Braun was first, and then he was the second. Although I might be missing someone. I know there's been like four, and so Kamala Harris came afterwards. I can't think of the fourth person right now. But anyway, you get my point. There's not a lot of black senators that have been elected, and he's one of the few, and he would not be standing there had Strom Thurmond succeeded in trying to overturn or trying to filibuster the desegregation laws. But his story then is about John Lewis and the person who beat him nearly to death with his grandson. They're apologizing to John Lewis for what he had done. And then John Lewis forgiving him, saying we all need mercy. And where this has me in a loop, and there are people I know and people whom I love and whom I have loved who are in the MAGA crowd. I know there's people. My wife can barely talk to her brother and her sister-in-law anymore as a large part of this. And I know that most of us know MAGA people who will not talk to us. And if you're a MAGA person who is accidentally watching this for some reason, you probably know liberals who you won't talk to anymore. But where I am inspired is that we can move past that in our relationships with people, and we can move past the fact that they're MAGAs if there's contrition. Like, I think that is one qualification, is there was contrition on the side of the guy that came and apologized to John Lewis with his son there, to recognize that he was wrong. And so I don't know. I struggle with this a lot. I know people that were always good people to me. I know people that were always good people to people of color and minorities. I know people that would gladly welcome someone into their house from another country, even if they weren't here legally. They would gladly welcome them into their house and feed them at no cost. I know people that have helped people that, whose legal status fell into jeopardy, that voted for Trump and voted for MAGA. And I don't know how they dissect these things between what they have always believed and what they suddenly believe. I don't know how they make that. But if they can I don't agree. I don't believe that every single MAGA always believed these things. I think that there is a real kind of culture and environment to where, they get in a bubble and they listen to Fox News and all they hear is hatred all the time. And they don't hear any balance. They don't hear the other side. They don't hear really what is the truth about things. And they're just constantly indoctrinated with hatred and animosity towards anything that is not Trump. And then they're told that everybody that disagrees with them only has hatred for Trump. And that's the real reason, that it's just an unreasonable hatred for Trump derangement syndrome, if you will. They've even made up a disease for it. But these things are not, we all know they're not real. They're not valid. There's no such thing as Trump derangement syndrome, unless you call Trump's derangement syndrome the syndrome which causes people to defend Trump no matter what he does. But we are here in a place where I think almost everyone knows people that they used to call friends, that they used to call family, who can no longer associate with them, or whom they can no longer associate with because they're just so far gone. And so if you have people like that, this is one thing I'd like you to take home from Cory Booker's speech, is that John Lewis forgave the cop who beat him nearly to death. So there is leave room for forgiveness in your heart. If they come back and they say, I don't know what happened. I don't know how I got all hooked up into all that Trump stuff, but I'm sorry for the things I said. I'm sorry for what I said about, COVID or whatever. You might even have people that died of COVID whom they were insensitive to say the least, screaming about vaccines or whatever. But I just want to say, if there's going to be a place for America to heal, we have to be part of that. We have to be part of the forgiveness part. And I know it's like when I was a little kid and my little brother would start something And sometimes I'd be wrong, sometimes he'd be wrong. But in my mom's eyes, always I was wrong. And so then I would always have to be the first one to apologize because I was older, and that's just the way that the cookie crumbled. Well, this is the way the cookie's going to crumble. We are the adult party. We are the adults in the room. And so we are going to have to forgive. And they will never grow if we don't. And I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. And we need to be able to move past it. And if John Lewis can move past it, I can guarantee you that almost nobody watching this has had a worse offense against them than nearly being beaten to death for fighting for their right to vote. I mean, it's possible other people have had worse situations, and I won't tell you how to forgive people that have done worse things to you. But if John Lewis can forgive somebody like that, then I think most of us can forgive somebody for voting for Trump. So, anyway, that's what I have to say about all that. And I'm really, like I'd say, I'm tend to be jaded. I'm 57 years old. I've been through a lot of stuff. I've been through my own fights. I got drummed out of the Air Force because I wouldn't testify against people that were gay. I nearly, I knew Paul Wellstone, speechwriter. He was a good friend of mine, and his death was, like personally difficult for me. I think that, his voice is one we could really use these days. Probably the closest we have is Al Franken. We have a history of struggles on our side. I remember in 1992 when Bill Clinton won, and it was the first time in my even adolescent / adult life that I had seen a Democrat win the presidency. And I was excited about it. And I think that Bill Clinton was a good president. I don't think he was a perfect president. I don't think he was a flawless president. There were some things that he did that people seemed to want to identify him by, and not all the good things he did. But there were a lot of good things he did. For 8 years, we had peace and prosperity in this country. And that's not something you've been able to say about a whole lot of presidents in American history. So anyway, I understand that everybody has their own history too. John Lewis has history. You have your history. You have your history with your family. You have your history with your friends, just as I have with mine. But we cannot become a society that moves past forgiveness, especially in the face of repentance. So I hope that we can all have, like these kinds of moments where we do a little self-reflecting and consider, how we can move past this, how we can move on, just as John Lewis did. So anyway, I'm glad that Cory Booker spent a lot of time on that in his speech. Of course, compared to 25 hours, how long it was, I don't know. But he seemed to bring it up a few times. So anyway, I'll just look at a couple of comments here. I followed one person on Twitter whose father died to COVID and then went to work for the COVID denying Elon Musk. Couldn't understand. I understand where you're coming from, Joe. I mean, there's always a possibility that was the only job they could get or whatever. But sometimes people have to make their choices beyond whether or not their employer works for, somebody that believes in COVID. I can hardly go 16 straight. And he went for, so Paul says he can hardly go 16 straight hours without talking. I did wonder, how my wife felt about the 25 hours and 4 minutes. She's like, I've listened to Kelly talk for much longer than that about much less significant things. But anyway, I'm pretty sure there are more than one wife. There's more than one wife that thought 25 hours and 4 minutes of straight talking was not that difficult. The 25 hours and 4 minutes of straight listening is a different hurdle to jump. But anyway, I think that's it for everything. I appreciate you guys for popping on and listening to me talk about this. I really do. Even if it's not, inundated with comments, as long as I can look up and see that there are people watching, that's an encouragement to me. So I'm going to do later on, I'll try and put all of these videos into just a clip to where it's like not me interspersing it with my rambling. So check back on the channel. If you're not already following and subscribing, go ahead and do that. And I've got a fun project I'm doing that I just want to give a little shout out to. It's a novella I'm writing, and I'm kind of doing it in this whiteboard style, and it's called The Magic Stone. I've got the first 3 chapters up. If you just want something to take your mind off it, it's a fun little story about a magic stone, and right now it's collecting some superheroes to go with it on a quest to save the universe. So, each one is about 5 minutes long, and there's 3 of them. So if you have 15 minutes you want to waste, go ahead and take a look and then subscribe, and you'll be able to catch up on the future ones. But anyway, actually, you know what? Let's do this. I'm just gonna drop this link in here in case you're around. That's the link for the Magic Stone. So if you want to follow that list and watch the videos, then that would be cool. If not, that's okay too. All right. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your day. And just remember what I said. Are you doing what you can do? And if you're not, please do it. Please. We all need your help.